All right, guys, we want to welcome everybody in. It is Three Dads Talk Theme Park. Tonight's episode 3. We're going to go over Walt's story of Snow White and the 7 other topics. So we're going to be touching on a few things this evening, but want to thank you for joining us. Ron and I are ready to discuss all things Disney theme parks and all kinds of stuff. But tonight's episode number 3, we want to thank those of you joining us, and feel free to jump on and share your comments, your thoughts, or anything else as we move forward here. So tonight we had talked about wanting to share the story about Snow White, and I'm going to turn it over to Ron to get that started for us.
Awesome. So we landed on this topic almost by accident. For those of you who were watching last week, it kind of just popped up, and it's perfect because it talks about the fact, and it speaks to Walt's desire to drive, to innovate, and not be afraid to take risks. So mid 1930s, his studio had produced something called Silly Symphonies, and they were amazing because they had transformed animation into something that resembled fine art. I mean, everybody went crazy over the idea. And then he makes this announcement that he wants to do a full-length feature film that's animated. Roy was concerned about it. Were people going to be into it? How much was it going to cost? But even medical professionals came out and said, oh, this is a bad idea. People are going to go blind. They're going to get vertigo. Health issues are going to appear. This is the thinking that took place in the early 1930s when Walt made this announcement. And even his own animators could not get behind the idea. So one day, he's real smart about this. He comes into the studio and he gives his animators 50 cents a piece. And he says, go get dinner, come back when you're done. Now, you're thinking 50 cents, what can I get for 50 cents? But back then, 50 cents was equivalent to 10 to 12 bucks. So at that period, you could get a nice steak, you could get a glass of wine. Man, you could do it up right. So the animators, they go as a group, they eat, they have a glass of wine, maybe a beer. They come back to the studio and they're in the soundstage. All the lights are off except for one. There's one overhead light and it's shining down on Walt. And he encourages all the animators to come in. And so they all come in and he has them sort of gather around him. And then he proceeds to tell the story of Snow White. He's using every voice and he's engaging all the animators. And he takes, now I'm not going to do it because it took several hours for him to tell this story. But as some of the animators relay it in their own autobiographies, they said, after hearing that, I would have climbed a mountain into a pack of wildcats for him, because he was so convincing with the story. But he literally, if you can imagine him just screwing up his shoulders and grabbing a prop like an apple as he's walking up to animators, and he's doing this, and then he's skipping like Snow White and he's acting like the animals. Every single character he vocalized and he brought to life, and he got them on board. I mean, really got them on board. They had this renewed vigor and drive. It took longer than expected. It went way over budget, but Snow White, when it was released, and it took longer than expected. It started production in 1934. It was released in 1937. There were days where literally an entire team of animators spent all their time drawing cells of a close-up of Snow White's face. He knew it had to be perfect. He knew everybody was expecting him to fail. Everybody thought it was a folly. Everybody was certain he was doomed. So he needed to make sure it was successful right out of the gate. I mean, that there's an amazing life lesson, that life hack about, be willing to risk it all and believe in what you're risking and believe in what you're doing. So the film gets released. Its first year, it does $8 million. Now, remember, we're talking 1937, right? In today's money, it's probably about $110 million. It made $110 million. It made more than 500 times what it cost, 5 times what it cost its first year, right? And it's an important lesson about how a vision can carry everybody, and Walt, we talked about this before. Walt was the first person to tell you, I've done nothing by myself. It's always my team. It's always the team of incredibly talented individuals around me. And during the animated production of Snow White, he brought in animals, he brought in actors to play out the characters. He brought in a young dancer and had her do pirouettes and leaps so that they could see what the human form looked like as it was moving through the air. During sequences like things breaking, he would have things break. He'd have boards break, and he'd have the animators throw things at glass so that they could see the glass shatter. So really, there was no limit to his commitment. And Snow White is it's a film that clearly and truly stands the test of time. When you watch it and you understand everything that's happening on screen was created by human hands. That to me is an amazing thing.
I agree. That's very incredible. And it like, I think, that level of commitment is something that Walt, obviously also carried into parks development, everything else, that he always seemed able to achieve the unattainable.
Right.
And that's one of the legends to me that has always just made Walt Disney so much more than anyone else that ever did anything in the realm of entertainment or theme parks or anything else. He is just such an iconic and inspirational person.
It's true. To your point, if you picked a topic, if you picked the parks, if you picked an attraction, if you picked the resorts, if you picked a cruise line or anything, you can just drill down on the details. You can drill down. Many people know about how not only visually, when you're walking through any of the parks, the lands change because of colors and architectural schematics, but also the floor. The texture of the ground you're walking on changes. Everything changes to create that additional layer of environment to bring you in. It's amazing stuff. To this day, it's funny. I had this conversation with someone 2 days ago. We were talking about, someone had said to me, well, I don't like Disney because it's artificial. And I said, oh, where do you live? And they told me they happen to live in a gated community. I went, oh, really? So it's got one of those artificial entrances, and it's got those pretty artificially trimmed shrubs and hedges that you don't see in nature. The really cool thing about Walt and the architecture that makes up Main Street is that's taught as an architectural class in many universities across the U.S. So pretty fascinating stuff to me.
Yeah, and Charles just made a comment that Jim Henson is a close second in creativity. He's definitely a pioneer. I still think just the overall work of Walt is so impressive because of that you just discussed, the depth of the detail, the insane demand for perfection.
Right.
Every level of what he did.
Right.
And to try to remember, early on, he wanted it for everyone.
Yes.
And, the dynamic of that has changed slightly with business being business, and that happens. But, I think the dynamic of what Walt brought to the table as just a creative mind and visionary is just something that is relatively untapped,
Right.
as far as people that left their footprint in such a way that he did. He was just an extraordinary person. I love reading the books on, his thought process. And I mean, there's been multiple books written with just quotes.
It's true.
That he came out with, and that, the things I think that, Walt just really had no limit. People always tell you to believe in yourself. People always tell you to have faith in your own ability. People try to motivate you and say, you control your own destiny. But most people are pretty reserved. Most people are pretty held back. And in fairness, most people are taught in society to be, to fear failure. You don't want to fail. Like,
right.
Like you need to succeed. And
right.
The real
you're taught to stay in the lines. You're taught to stay in your own lane. You learn as a child to draw inside the lines. So
yeah. And like my father was an old school, work 40 hours a week, do your job. At the end of your 40 years of working for a company, you retire and do what you're supposed to. And
right.
I remember in my youth, and even at times now, he really struggles with the fact that I've always been of the mindset that I wanted to find something I loved to do and make money doing it. And it was hard for him to understand that I was willing to go without in order for that to happen. I was willing to fail. I was willing to hit the bumps in the road and not have the stability, but to stay the course and try to find ways to creatively manifest a job that I could be proud of, that I could enjoy and make a living doing. And, I was able to do that for about 20 years of my life, and now thanks to COVID, it's a little bit of rebuilding again, but that's okay because,
right.
I'm one of those people that doesn't fear the change, doesn't fear the hiccup. I've always kind of buck the system a little. And that's why I think for me personally, people like Walt that did the same have always been huge inspirations for me, as showing that you don't have to do it the way society tells you. You can do it the way you vision it if you believe in it. And
Walt, it's funny when you bring up Walt, there was a certain rigidity because he knew what he wanted. His vision was so clear. The animators would often talk about how, they'd come back after being off for the weekend, and, Walt would walk the hallway and he'd duck into their offices and cubicles, and he'd look at the work that they were doing on the draft board, and then he'd rifle through the trash, and he'd take something out. And this happened frequently. He'd circle something and make a note about, hey, I'm not sure what you're working on now, but this thing that they took out of the trash, I'd like to see more of this. So that's the kind of thing that, on the focus side, Walt was like. But then there's other great stories, such as he's walking up Main Street, Magic Kingdom, and Disneyland's been open, I don't know, a few weeks, and there's a security guard who's overworked because he's trying to get people to get off the grass. They won't get off the grass. So there's a sign that says, "Get off the grass." And Walt says, "Oh, you know what? I'll take care of this." And he sends the security host off on his way, and he goes over and he just picks up the sign, takes it out of the grass, because the people wanted to stand there. It wasn't hurting anything. He's like, okay, why not? There's no reason to say no to this.
Right. That's something else that I think is, one of the things I always found fascinating is the level of thought, when Walt watched people to figure out that on average, if someone held a piece of trash, that they took 30 steps,
right,
and would drop it.
Do you know who he would talk to all the time when he walked through the parks? First of all, he had business cards printed up. You know about this?
No.
So he had business cards printed up with his signature on them, and on the other side it said, congratulations, you met Walt Disney, or something like that. It was fun, but it was just he was getting besieged by autograph seekers more and more. That someone had suggested, this is what you should do: just write your signature on a bunch of cards, and on the other side, I met Walt Disney. He would say hi to the adults, but he would stop and he would kneel down and he would spend minutes at a time talking to the kids. What do you like? What didn't you like? What have you enjoyed? What kind of food have you eaten? How long have you been here? He would pepper them with questions, and he would listen intently to everything they had to say.
I think that's super cool, and I also think that's super important. And to that point, on vacation, that's something that I think more adults need to take into consideration and remember sometimes.
Right.
We started with Snow White. Might as well get into the Seven Dwarfs a little bit.
Yes.
Happy is what it's all about. And you want to be happy all the time when you're on vacation. That's how you envision your vacation. You definitely don't want to be grumpy.
Right.
You want happy. And I think sometimes as adults we unintentionally push our kids in the way that, I know I've done it with Tegan early on. You're spending a lot of money. You want to maximize your dollar. You want to not miss anything because you feel like you have to see it all when you're there. And it took us literally years to learn that we're never going to see it all. That's the beauty of Disney. It never stops changing. It never stops growing. It never stops altering, and that was something that was, if I could give any vacationer advice, and people taking a trip with their family, is to lower the expectation and increase the fluidity of just going with the flow. And Disney requires a lot of planning, and we all understand that. If you need your food reservations, you need to get stuff made in advance. You do need to do a lot of pre-planning. But once you're in the parks, you need to find the ability, just in my opinion, just to step back and kind of let it flow. And if you're bringing kids, let the kids dictate the flow. At the end of the day, the reason you took them there is for their enjoyment. Many adults enjoy Disney. Take an adult's trip. But if you're there with the kids, let your kid dictate the pace. When your kid's ready for a break, take a break. When they're having fun, let them explore. Let them keep going. Don't drag them away. Let them have a moment. If they're interacting with cast or other people, don't push. Just enjoy it. Those are some of the most magical and amazing memories I've had, are just when Tegan has interacted with people in the parks in her own way. And I just took the time to stand back and watch it take place. Half the time I wouldn't even be standing there. I'd be watching it from a distance, but I'm watching my child thoroughly be able to enjoy her moments at Disney. And that to me was so much more important in the success of our vacation. So happy is a huge thing.
I agree. I think to stack on that, we talked about this last week when you encounter a situation that's got your feathers ruffled, take a breath and go, okay, what's their story? What's going on? Let me get perspective.
Yeah.
Ask yourself that question when you're at the parks and you're not having fun. Stop and go, wait a minute, why am I here? I'm here to have fun. If you're not having fun, stop, hit the reset button, and start having fun. I mean, it's oversimplified, but honestly, it's that simple. Yeah, it's that simple.
Don't be grumpy. Don't ruin. You can't. I think the other lesson that it took us a few years to learn is, 9 times out of 10, when you're not having fun, it's not anyone else's fault but your own.
That's right.
You're your own worst enemy. And I understand things can happen in the park. Things can occur that cause problems or frustration. But at the end of the day, don't be grumpy.
You know what? It's all it's all perspective, honestly. I tell
And we
people,
talked about that.
I tell people all the time, if you're at the parks and it's raining, that's a bonus for you. Everybody's running crazy, but any of the enclosed attractions and shows, they're still going on. That's your perfect opportunity. For me, starts raining, it's like, perfect. I needed a shower anyway. Whatever. Enjoy it.
One of the things we'd like to do, and I offer this as advice to a lot of my clients too, is we prefer sit down meals over
quick serve. Yep.
So we like to get our hour and a half break, sit down,
yep,
enjoy a nice meal, have a little dessert, and relax. One of the things we've found with Florida weather is that thunderstorm always seems to come in somewhere between like 3 and 5 o'clock on average. So, we try to book our lunch reservation for around 3 o'clock. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. We usually do our breakfast, and we do a big breakfast. We'll load up. So if we're eating before we go to the parks, it's like 7:30. But a lot of times we're having like a 10:30 or 11 late breakfast. Then if we do a lunch around 3 o'clock, we don't need to eat a dinner that evening. And in fairness, that's generally Disney's most expensive meal at sit-downs. So we can get away with not going to a sit-down for dinner while everyone else starts to eat dinner, then pool for the fireworks, and then leave the parks. We're generally still doing rides from 5 o'clock on. And that's as the parks thin out, it's easier to get on those rides and do things. So we enjoy doing it that way. And that's a way that's worked good for us, is to wind up with a couple of sit downs in a day, but not necessarily do a dinner. And sometimes we'll just grab a quick snack back at the hotel when we get back there, or we have snacks in our room. And that's one of the things that, we have always enjoyed. It's worked for us. It doesn't work for everybody, but again, it's another.
No. And I think to stack on I love that idea. Plenty of times I've gone with friends and family, and we'll book for dinner, we'll book the last seating of the night in a restaurant, because we know by the time we're done, and many of the restaurants, like for example, at Epcot, many of the restaurants will say, go watch the fireworks, come back, we'll seat you when they're done. And by the time you're done eating and you're walking out of the park, you're closing the park. I mean, literally, it's just you and a few families. And to me, there's a special magic to that.
We've left them as the last people, because of that. And a lot of the restaurants too actually take seating, like up until the close time.
That's right.
A lot of times they're running behind. So you may not get seated for 45 minutes till after close, and then you still are sitting there. And the one thing I give Disney a lot of credit for, that I know some restaurants, when you go places, once you're there at close, your service diminishes.
Yeah.
They give you the rush. They make you feel
they're cleaning around you. They're slamming tables. They're vacuuming the floor.
They're still cleaning around you at Disney.
Yeah, but it's still not the same.
They never tell you have to go. I mean, they're really good about it. I mean, if you're being ridiculously exorbitant in your time there, they may say something, but we have never been spoken to in all our time at Disney.
Nope.
And only once leaving a park did we get told, hey, it was time. And that was the night I brought Tegan for that epic 24-hour Christmas trip.
Right.
And we were at the party, and a photographer told us to come back at close. She sat with us for like 45 minutes, and we were just so overwhelmed and having fun. We started losing track of time, and all of a sudden security was like, "God, we gotta go. We're sweeping."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay, we were the last people to leave Magic Kingdom."
but they were awesome about it. They weren't.
Oh yeah,
they weren't mean.
Without a doubt.
It's a deeply fascinating thing to me. Disneyland Paris. Yep. I don't know if we've talked about this or not. What their soft sweep is actually, their cast members lock arms. I was surprised that they were kind of gently touching us and hurting us towards the exit. I was like, wow, that's, in the Orlando operation, you've got people there, and as guests come up, they're saying, oh, this area is closed for the day. But in Paris, Disneyland Paris, they physically are pushing you out. It was
Well, I think,
pretty
yeah,
entertaining.
also, yeah, and I'm that's also a cultural differential too.
Yeah.
You know, I think is not uncommon either. One thing I did want to talk about a little that you would be able to offer some insight into. I know where some of the locations are, but something that, you know, a lot of people don't think of beforehand with vacation, but can get quickly reminded that they need. Again, going to our Seven Dwarfs tonight, we're going to talk about doc, healthcare, first aid. When things happen, you know, I'll give an example. I know for fact that the trolley tracks on Main Street have taken many an ankle over the years.
Right.
And people get excited and they don't really watch where they're walking, and it's very easy to roll an ankle in there. And I myself have helped a couple people over to the sidewalk after taking a little spill and sitting with cast members and helping them get taken care of. But every park does have a first aid station.
Yes.
They are phenomenal. If you've never been into one, they can really save your day.
Yeah.
Legitimate.
Yeah. And in fact, and I can't speak to what's happening now as we all sort of emerge from our caves, but you know, before the pandemic, you know, frequently in close proximity, there would be a children's area by the first aid location. There'd be cast members there, so you know, you didn't have to worry quite as much. It wasn't like I'm going to dump my kids off and run and play. It wasn't that sort of thing. But they want to make sure that everybody's taken care of, and right. But you're right. As far as the first aid, it's in every park, and you know, that's the first thing I always advise when people go to the parks. It's not it's like insurance. You pay for it and hope you never need it, but it's always better than not having it and then needing it and going, oh my gosh, what do I do? So, you know, it's always when you go into any of the parks, stop by guest relations or grab a map. And as much of a hurry as you're in, give yourself the 2 minutes to look at that map or talk to a cast member, you know, find out things like where's first aid. Because that's a super important one. You know, bathrooms typically are important. You know, for me, I enjoyed sharing this special Epcot life hack for guests who would ask about bathrooms. In World Showcase, bathrooms are every other country in between countries. So that's how you find them. The exception
My luck would be I'd go to the wrong country and then go to the wrong country and the wrong country and just not make it all the way around.
Oh, that wouldn't be good. I mean, the exception of that whole thing is Norway, where the bathrooms are actually right there in between Sommerhus and then where the bakery is. But otherwise, yeah, every other country between countries.
Speaking of bathrooms, other information, I actually wrote a whole blog called Poo Corner about the best and the best and worst bathrooms at Disney. And I actually surveyed quite a few people over the years that asked where their favorite bathrooms were, because it's funny, people have them, and there are certain
yes, they do.
There are certain resorts I will even travel to for the benefit of their glorious restroom facility.
It's true. Oh my gosh, it's true.
You know,
some have better music, some have better air conditioning. Yeah.
True. Oh, the ones in Epcot at American Adventure are the coldest restrooms I've ever experienced at Disney. The air conditioner, I don't know what it is in there, but it reminds me of a New England winter. It is freezing in there.
That's awesome.
But it is quite funny. So sometime we'll do a show and we'll talk about the restroom facilities. On moving forward, though, from doc and first aid questions, one of the other things that I think people always need to remember too, people traveling that suffer from allergies often feel like when they're in Florida, they're not going to be dealing with as much. We were there a couple of years ago. The pollen was awful. I had the worst, like I had such a hard time with pollen on a given year. If you're sneezy, bring your meds. Like have
Yes.
them available for you. I know you think you may be fine there, but you are just as at risk. And I was a little taken aback how bad my allergies hit me on that given trip. And I
Yeah.
wound up having to go get some medication. And it's just another step that you can save yourself by planning ahead. So
Right.
if you're a sneezy, bring your meds, pack them. It's
Yeah.
worth it.
If something happens where for some reason you've forgotten them, unless that changes, first aid carries things like Benadryl in each park.
Oh yeah, and I know they're helpful. It was just a little advice that I learned after a rough vacation.
Oh no, I agree. I agree.
As a result.
I completely I agree. You should. There are certain things you should have in your park bug out bag that you're carrying with you. You should have Aleve or Advil. You should have allergy medication.
Yeah.
You should have Tums. You should have Tums, not because the food is terrible, but because there are some world-class chefs whipping up some amazing things, and your stomach may not be able to handle the richness of the spices of the things that you're eating, or you may have an adventurous palate. You may try something that tastes great, but your stomach feels like someone's tied a towel into a knot and put it in there. So
and the other one too is like hydration. I know people harp on it all the time, but you can bring bottled water into Disney.
Yep.
Bring yourself.
Yep.
Bring your Yeti. Bring if you're that fancy. I can't afford a Yeti. I just bring a couple plastic bottles and I refill them.
Yeah, and you can get ice water from most of the locations that have soda or things like that. Any of the restaurants will give you a couple of ice water.
Or sit downs will give you free complimentary water.
Yep.
The one thing I will say, sometimes the lines at some of the quick service in order to get that can still be a few minutes. And if you have your own, it really does help. I know there's a lot of people that like to, take advantage of the free services from Disney because they are limited on like free is a 4-letter F word that is not often said when it comes to Disney or any business for that matter. That's not a knock. It's just a fact. Another 4-letter F word. But the realities of stuff, like the more you prepare and have yourself prepared, the easier and better your vacation becomes. And I think that's the biggest thing with some of these tips and things that we're trying to share with you guys is just giving you the opportunity to maximize your vacation and enjoy the time in the park without having to worry about things, but knowing what to do when things go wrong and where to find answers.
Yes.
And that's something that, as we've discussed, cast members are all trained to help anyone. It doesn't matter. If you see a name tag, don't be afraid to ask that person a question. There are thousands and thousands of cast members working every day in those parks, and they are all able to help you at the very most basic level of getting you to where you need to go. Yep. So if you have a question, you don't need to find somebody that is specific to that role or that department or that ride. You can truly ask anyone, and they will get you an answer even if they don't have it, as you have done last week with the radio.
Right. Disney makes it even easier for you, as you might expect. Everybody's wearing name tags. So piece of cake. You can walk up to Brian because he's got a name tag on, says that's his name. And you can ask him, hey, Brian, I'm looking for a bathroom, or, my daughter's got a cut. I need first aid. Brian, that's spot on advice. The cast members, they really are your best resource, honestly. Everything in the world you need to know, from what time should I show up if we're having dinner and then we got to go to this other park, to if I want to stay an extra day, what's the best way to do that, to I have this issue, who should I talk to? People are trained there. They're trained in the art of saying yes.
And a couple other things that I'll mention, just because I know people have posted questions about it, like especially at Hollywood Studios right now, in regards to Rise of the Resistance, which is such a high demand, ride, and people are fighting to get their boarding passes and boarding groups and asking how to do stuff and everything else. One thing I will tell you, if you have a dining reservation at Hollywood Studios, Rise of the Resistance will tell you, go fulfill your dining reservation and then come back and ride the ride. Like they will tell you to make sure that you are taking care of fulfilling your dining reservation first, and then come back to the ride. Because we had an example where we had the opportunity to ride in like 30 minutes, but we had an Oga's Cantina reservation. I was a little concerned of the timing. They said, don't worry, take care of eating, make sure you feed your belly, and then you can fight harder for the Resistance on a full stomach. So, when it comes to that, make sure you're prioritizing the right places. If you're not sure, double check with a cast member, or if you're not confident enough in that information. But I'm telling you, they are very good about making sure you will get on the ride if you have your boarding pass. If you don't, they give you an hour window. I understand that. That's to make sure people are getting back. If you're stuck at a restaurant and explain the situation to the cast member, you're going to get to ride. They're going to take care of you.
Yeah.
They're very good with that stuff. So just, keep that in mind too. And Dopey is another one. there are plenty of dopies around Disney World.
Don't be a dopey.
And don't be a dopey. And dopies can be guests or cast members. Everybody has bad days. It can happen. If you encounter somebody who's being a dopey, try your best just to let it go. If you feel it being worthwhile of speaking to management or a guest coordinator, you can do so, but don't interact with the dopey themselves. Let it go. Don't make a scene. Best advice I can give you, don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution.
Yeah.
Dopies, for the most part, are going to be guests or entitled people, or just legitimate dopies, not paying attention, not looking around at their surroundings, not being aware. There's a lot of accidental dopies. No harm, no foul.
Remember when people are going to the parks and the resorts for the first time, sensory overload's an understatement. For everybody out there watching and listening, you've been to a Disney park or resort, you can go to a location 36 times and still see new things. And that's a thing that you see happening all the time in all the parks. People stop in the middle of the walkway because they're overwhelmed by everything they're seeing. So, give them a pass. Show them a little bit of grace
behind them.
Yeah. Show them a little bit of grace and let them enjoy that moment, because you know what? You've probably done it too. I know I have. The dopies you want to steer clear of, like Brian said, those are the antagonists, the rabble rousers. Steer clear of them, because if you get sucked into their drama and they're doing something that's trespass or getting kicked out of a park worthy, and you're viewed as part of that problem, there goes your holiday too.
Yep, you're at risk. And as a matter of fact, I've personally known one person who got the issue resolved in the aftermath, but was in the process of being trespassed from the parks and banned permanently over an issue that they were not directly involved in, but they tried to stand up and get involved for the benefit, believe it or not, of a cast member.
Yep.
And then because of the way things were going when security did arrive, the whole group was pulled out. And they later got it rectified. But my friend was telling me he was seriously nervous. He was never going to be allowed to go to Disney again over him trying to help a cast member. Yeah. And you've got to keep in mind, it's not your job. There's security in place to take care of cast members. There's management in place to take care of cast members, and there's cameras in place. And luckily in that case, the cameras are actually what helped him when they went back and were able to review security footage. But it's very, very tough sometimes. Yeah, don't be a dopey like the cucumber lady on Living in the Land. Please stay seated at all times has a purpose. Please hands and arms inside the vehicle at all times has a purpose.
Yes, guardrails are there for a purpose. I remember this was probably better than a couple of decades ago. There were some people who thought it would be fun to try to scale the Canada waterfall. Just don't.
Yep. I've seen my share of definite dopies. I'm just wondering if salad prices have gone up since then. I'm curious. Cucumbers may be a higher priority now, and like they may be getting premium money. Could be.
Yeah, we're just never gonna know. I mean, maybe there's a tell-all novel in the works that she's working on. My life as a living with the land cucumber thief.
Yeah, I don't think she's gonna get a big book deal on that one. I'm holding out.
You know what? I'd love to believe you, but I have one word for you: Kardashians.
Yeah, well, it could be a picture book.
Yes. Yeah. It could be a pop-up picture book. And the last pop-up page could be a cucumber.
How I'm living with the land. So other dwarfs that we have yet to mention. Bashful. With all being said right now, don't be bashful about asking for help, about asking for assistance, or admitting you don't know. There is no harm. Here's the thing. As a man, we have that idiotic man pride that has been joked about for decades.
We're missing the gene that allows us to ask for directions.
So correct. Like, we can't ask for direction. No, man, figure it out. Inner compass. All these different things that we do as people.
Yes, Charles, no climbing the Mexico pyramid either. That's still a thing. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I just saw that.
No, he's right. But at least I know how to find the Mexico pyramid now because I've asked directions. And it wasn't from the people that were climbing it.
No.
But not being afraid to ask for help. What's going to make or break your vacation? One of the biggest things is if you begin to reach a level of frustration, not knowing how to get somewhere that you're supposed to be, running out of time, you can find that cast member that can call a restaurant and say, hey, this guest is running late. They have a 6:15. They're at the parks. They've been trying to find out how to get out. I'm sending them your way now. Give them a break. Push the reservation back.
And they will
work to help you. So if you are feeling flustered, don't be bashful. Ask for help. Again, anyone with a name tag can start to get your problem solved. And if they can't solve it, they can help you at least solve your own issue.
And you know what? To stack on that from the very beginning of what you said, the thing about guys and not being able to. When I was a leader in the parks, I would target when I would see guests with their maps open. I would come right up to them and I would, hey, can I help you find something? And I'm not kidding. 80% of the time that no, it's like, well, here's the thing. I see your map open, and they train us. They train us. The moment we see a map, we can't help it. It's like a moth to light. And I got to tell you something. I'm trained to read that map and get you to where you want to go. And by that time you're talking to them and they're not so weirded out by the fact they can't figure out how to get around. So, and I would show them my hack, and I'll share it with you now. For any park you're in, when you're looking at the map and you don't know where you are in relationship to the rest of the park, look for a landmark around you and then find that landmark on the map and then orient the map to where the landmark is. Let's say you're in Epcot and you're in front of the Italy Pavilion and you're looking and you find the Italy Pavilion on the map. So you hold it just like that. You see where you are. Now you can look around and know exactly where you are. That trick works with every park, and not just the Disney parks. It works for Universal, works for SeaWorld, works for Six Flags, Wild Adventure, King's Dominion, you name it. Any park that's got a map, find a landmark and you'll find your way.
And the other thing that is very good advice, of course. The other thing, in regards to finding places, one of the things we worry about most when we plan our vacation is our last dwarf. Sleepy. Sleepy needs a good bed. Sleepy needs a good, comfortable bed. And one of the last things I wanted to talk about for this evening's episode was some of the hotels and lodging at Disney and how the price tiering and category can make a difference in your night's sleep. It can make a difference in your overall experience. And It also depends on what you, in fact, are looking for. And I'll explain that a little, because certain people go on vacation at Disney or other parks, and I don't know why or how these people do this, because I'm not wired that way, but they actually will take a day just to chill in the resort and hang out and enjoy their resort.
Oh, wait a minute. You've done that before, because I met you and T at a resort when she was in the pool, and it was a hangout day at the. So you have done that at least once.
No, that was not a hangout day. That was a 1 hour break to come back and meet you, and it was the first time we had ever done.
Okay.
we have been in the pool at our resort for 20 minutes to an hour, but we have never spent a day and not go to the parks or anything. Like, there are people that do resort days.
Yes.
So, and I'm making fun of that in a sense, but Tegan and I are the open to close, diehard park goers. When we go to a theme park, we are there at rope drop. We are there when the park closes, and that's when we come back. And we are so damn tired, you could throw a cardboard box on the floor in a linoleum kitchen, and we would pass out and sleep just fine. So for our quality of life, we're not overly concerned with getting a moderate or deluxe resort. We're not overly concerned with the pools. We're not overly concerned with resort hotel food, but a lot of people are. And I will tell you personally, we've stayed at 16 different Disney resorts now, which is not all of them, but it's quite a few. Most comfortable beds we've found, this is my personal opinion, and in no way does, I'm not endorsing, this is just solely personal opinion. Believe it or not, the Dolphin Resort in the Epcot area, which is not an official Disney resort, does have resort fees attached if you stay there, has the most comfortable beds I've ever slept on, ever, at any resort, anywhere. I sunk in and got the best night of sleep I think I've ever had on vacation.
But then there's the thing. Do you like a soft mattress, a firm mattress, something in the middle? Because that's an important qualifier that people listening or watching have to know.
I'm a little bit more on the soft and suck you in side, where you feel like you're part of the bed.
Right.
Cocoon and drift off. It was awesome. And the pillows were amazing too. And I will also say, if you're a pool person, that is a hidden gem pool that a lot of people don't realize, the Swan and Dolphin pool. It's a grotto pool, beautifully done, great area, very, very nice. If you're a pool person, I know a lot of people love the Polynesian for the pool. And I know a lot of people rave, and the highest rated pool at Disney is the Beach Club pool. Which is
because of the stand.
Oh, it is amazing. That's so therapeutic when you walk in that. Yeah. Oh my God. And there is nothing better. I will tell you, there's nothing better than getting out of that pool at Beach Club, the sand between your toes, grabbing your towel and walking over to Beaches and Cream and having a kitchen sink. I'm just saying.
All right. So as much as you went on about the Dolphin pool, I haven't seen you light up as much as you did talking about the Beach Club pool. So I'm gonna say by default, physically, your body is more attuned to the Beach Club pool than it is to the.
No, Beach Club is by far my favorite pool at Disney.
So I will counter the resorts day piece. First of all, I'm going to offer a bit of advice to anybody out there who wants to do the open to close thing, but you feel like you might lose your mind if you do. If you're staying on Disney property, my recommendation is get up to be at the park you're going to for the day before rope drop. Kill the next few hours, leave the park during the heat and the crazy weather of the day, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the afternoon. Go back to your room, refresh, go for a swim, leave the resort and go back to the park right around dinner time, 5, 6 o'clock. And then you're refreshed while everybody else has been walking around like a zombie. The other piece, though, to why people spend all day in the resorts, and I'm sure this will be brought back, Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge is amazing because they have these activities throughout the day, and they're bead activities. You go, you show up, you learn about the regions of Africa or the different kinds of music, and when you participate, because it's all engagement participation stuff, you get a bead. And you're doing these things all day long. And then if you do them all and you go to concierge, they give you an additional bead. Now, some people are really into that, but you can only do that if you're hanging out at the resort for the day. And then there are places like Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge that, it has the second largest collection of African art outside the Smithsonian in the US. I mean, you literally can walk up and down and see these amazing pieces of art. There's a history tour that I'm sure hopefully they'll bring back over at the Wilderness Lodge. So there are definitely reasons to want to stay in a resort all day and have a resort day. That, to me, I totally get. More so if you're staying in concierge level, because when a delicious beverage is only a few paces away, yeah, baby.
Tegan and I are just the people that are out in the parks for the adrenaline.
I get it. And trust me, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
And we are learning slowly to do other things. We've done the horseback riding now at the Wilderness, Fort Wilderness, which was great. We had a great time doing that. I learned today that they actually have a castle painting thing of the contemporary that you
can do they do.
The California Grill.
Yeah.
And it's available during the day around lunchtime. You get a stellar view of the castle while you sit and paint. And they do it every weekday. I believe it's Monday through Friday. Reservation.
And it's not expensive.
Yeah, it's like $30, I think. And you get to keep the castle you paint.
Right.
And I guess it's actually like a little almost like nightlight or light up type thing. And it's about $30. And I want to say it's from 12:30 to 2 or 12 to 2 in that time frame during weekdays. Reservations are highly recommended. If you need me to, reach out to me. I can get the phone number for how to do that. And I'll try to post it up on our page, actually, if you're interested in that. But there's a lot of things you can do. I mean, Disney has so much. And we've always focused on the parks because that's what we're there to do. We're there for the rides and the fun and the meeting people and the energy. We love that. Like, I want to relax when I come back from vacation, as crazy as that sounds. We push so hard. And
you need a holiday from the holiday.
Yeah, kind of we do. But I mean, we really, back to the resort concept, Pop Century is perfect for us because we need beds. And the noise or the thinner walls or some of the, the tour groups or things that are in some of the lower end, the value resorts, the All-Stars or Pop Century, they can be kind of noisy. They can be a little loud. If you come back exhausted like we are at 1 o'clock in the morning, most people are out. But even those that are up, we're not going to hear in 5 minutes because we're so tired. We're going out regardless. And then we're up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. and we're out before people are even up. So those resorts with the thin walls, if you're a go-go person, you're not even going to notice. Like, it's never been an issue for us. And in 1 year, we spent 40 nights at Pop Century in 1 year. And like, we never had a complaint, never heard a noise, never nothing. So the people that post that stuff all the time, I've never personally seen it. And I'm not saying that means it doesn't happen, but the way we do the parks, it doesn't affect us. So,
no, and also this goes back to, grumpy and bashful. If you're in that situation, if you feel like you need to get your family to sleep, or your kid just fell asleep, and you're inclined to want to run out the door and wring the neck of the person who's letting their kids run up and down, instead of trying to engage in a little vigilante justice, call the front desk. Because that's another great thing about the Disney resorts. You don't have to worry about whether or not there's someone up there to take your call. It doesn't matter what time you call, somebody's up there, and they address it immediately.
That's actually good to know. We've never had to complain about anything about, as far as guests. We've just needed more towels. That's about our.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
So, but the one thing I'll say is the value resorts, to me, as a single parent, they are worth their weight in gold, because it's the difference between taking one trip or 3 trips for me.
Yeah.
And, the fact that that particular value pop is now located right on the Skyliner line, which is, I like that form of transportation better than any transportation on Disney property. And I know there are people that are fearful of the height situation, or have their trepidation because some of the incidents that have happened. Listen, the monorail breaks down.
Yeah, nobody reports the on-time performance records. Nobody says breaking news, no problems with any of the Walt Disney World transportation. It's always, it's always the hiccups. And
I understand the fear of being stuck in something suspended for a little amount of time. We've never had an issue. I've sat up there for about 5 minutes at the longest. On average, it's pretty quick, but it is the most relaxing, nicest,
it's a great view.
Oh, the view's amazing. The ride's gentle. It's great because you actually interact with cast members as you're passing through stations. They always greet you. They always say, "Hi, how are you?" It's you. I can't recommend staying on the Skyliner enough. And if you're a value person, you do Pop Century or Art of Animation. If you're a moderate person, you can stay at Caribbean Beach. If you're the deluxe and you want the nice digs and you want to pay that money and enjoy the amazing luxuries that come with staying at a deluxe resort, you can stay at the I'm drawing a blank right now.
Disney Animal Kingdom Lodge or Wilderness Lodge or
the Riviera on the Skyliner.
Oh, right. Riviera is beautiful.
Oh, it is. It's a very nicely done hotel. The restaurant up top is amazing.
Yeah.
We'll do an episode coming up where we'll talk about some of the restaurants, from quick service to the fine dining to sit downs, different places you can go to eat.
Yep. That's probably going to be more than one episode, actually.
Yeah, we could do it by park, actually, and just start kind of by park and then do a resort restaurant review.
Right.
But again, let us know what you want. Charles, you're a dedicated guy hanging in with us, and we appreciate it very much.
Very much. Thank you.
But as we grow and more information comes out, share what you want to see. Let us know. Give us some ideas of what you want us to talk about. I want to touch, in a couple of, upcoming episodes. I also want to get into Universal a little bit and talk about, some of the new stuff going on. And I also want to spend some time talking about post-COVID changes and the blowback that some of these parks are getting, Disney in particular, from guests on ideal changes or policy changes that are being implemented because the time.
Thanks, Charles.
Yeah, thank you very much, Charles. We really do appreciate that. The time convenience of making changes post-COVID is so overwhelming for businesses that they are just rolling change after change after change out because there's no better time than right now. And one of the things Disney fans are really kind of missing a little bit, that the diehards anyway, is that, with the 50th coming, demand is going to be high. So if there's ever a time to gamble on making change for Disney from a business perspective, there's no better time to gamble on change than right now, while demand is going to be at one of its all-time highest points ever.
Right.
So if you're going to implement policy change, now is the time to do it. And that doesn't mean that some of these policies won't come back if things slow down and changes are deemed necessary. But you're not going to convince anyone to make the changes currently under a high demand, high volume, lost revenue year, where a company is trying to make up for lost revenue and see growth and improvement in the overall guest experience by making change. The bottom line is they're trying to improve the guest experience. Now, that may cost you more money, but Universal's made it clear people will pay money for improved customer experience, and Disney is going to adopt that. I'm sorry, that's a successful business model that's been implemented for years by their competitor, and they've seen it succeed and now reach a pinnacle where people are paying so much for those added benefits that they're actually paying more than they're paying to get into the park that day. So Disney's like, why would we offer this for free? It just doesn't make business sense.
Right.
And like, these are elements that people don't want to really discuss to, because they're purists, and they're like, how can Disney do this after all these years?
They're also used to the way things were. They're used to, this is how things were, and things are always going to change. For people going for the first time, they're not familiar with any of those changes, because for them, this is the first time. It's the first time they're going to the park. It's the first time they're experiencing the rides and the attractions and the shows and the meals. And maybe the first time they go is a time where Fast Pass is no longer available except as a premium offering that you pay for. But they don't care, because they don't know any different. And those things always change. Let's be honest. If we're going to rail against a company making changes because it's not only better for stakeholders but better for the consumer, then you should be against change in general, and probably start by getting rid of your smartphone and maybe your computer, and you can probably find somebody who's selling a horse and carriage. I mean, how far do you want to go back? So you have to be patient, and you have to be flexible, and you have to be willing to take a step back and say, what's their story? Brian mentioned Universal, so I'm going to dive into the Universal Resort, the Portofino, and tell you they have the most comfortable beds I've ever stayed at in any resort anywhere in the world. Anywhere.
Portofino.
Yes.
Okay, that'll have to go.
It's a double pillow top, and I'm not kidding. I ripped the sheets off, flipped over, found the tag, found who manufactured it, and literally when I left, I started going online to see where in the area I could find someone that was selling them. Okay.
Well, one, you need to text me or email that information. and two, we will touch on Universal next week. And I think next episode, we'll do some stuff on Universal, their policies, some of their rides. The new park broke ground officially, I guess, this week. From what I understand, they've started actual working. They've got stuff dropped off, and construction is kind of officially underway. So that being the case, they're talking 2025. So we got a lot to talk about, a lot of things we can touch on with Universal. Message our page or post on this video this week if you have any specific topics or questions in regards to Universal you would like us to address in next week's episode, and we will jump on the Universal bandwagon and train. We can talk some Volcano Bay, Universal Studios, Islands, and
Harry Potter.
Some of the past and present, because I know you've been part of some of the past, and we want to be able to touch on some of your experiences and really get some insight as to the differences and some of the things that really make Universal so amazing too.
Right.
Yeah, Epic Universe. Oh God, I can't wait for that. I'm so excited. I can't lie. I'm super excited for it. But we are going to wrap up for tonight. We're a little over an hour. We're trying to get this down to the hour mark, to go over stuff. But thank you guys so much for joining us. Like, share, whatever you want, help get us out there. We want to make a difference for your next vacation, give you some feedback, and help you enjoy your theme park experience at levels that maybe even you didn't expect to be able to do. Like we're trying to help any way we can.
Our principal focus is simple. We want you to be entertained. We want you to have fun. If you walk away learning something, that's a bonus.
All right. Well, we're going to sign off, and I'm going to share another little surprise with Ron for tonight as we have our little closing montage.
I love this.
So here we go. Once again, you can like and share and hang out with us when you can. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we will see you next time for episode 4 as we attack Universal. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.